Hey there everyone, welcome back to my channel. It's time for another one of my top 10 favorite videos. Now, one thing I want to point out, because I think there was some confusion with the last time I did this, these are not like my palette. I'm not creating a palette with these. Of course, if I was to create a palette, a few of these colors would make it in the palette. But the point of these videos is my top 10 favorite colors from each brand. Not that this would be a balanced palette, because clearly, if you even look at the names, this isn't a balanced palette whatsoever. But these are my 10 favorite colors from Mission Gold, and I wanted to share them with you and just kind of talk about why they're my favorites and, you know, when I often use them and whatnot. But please don't assume this is my palette, or this is what I would use in a palette all at once. No, I'd be mixing and matching different brands. But the whole point of this series is just showing my 10 favorite out of every brand, and maybe you'll find something new that you like. Of course, you can also watch my comparisons, which are done by color names, where I compare multiple brands. Upcoming next is Quinacridone Magenta and Quinacridone Gold. And Magenta, I think, has over 20 brands, but the last one I did had over 20 brands too. So I have my little friendly fun stamps. I will purposely be going out of the lines here, and that just helps test the opacity so that you can see it. We are not reviewing or anything. We're just kind of playing with watercolors and having some fun. So let's get going. Okay, so my favorite is Dioxazine Violet from Mission. It's actually PV23. I'm just swatching these wet on dry, so just keep that in mind while you're watching. Now, Burgundy Red, PR177. Like I said, purposely out of the lines. All right, then we have Quinacridone Violet. I am a big Quinacridone fan. I know some people don't like them. I've never met a Quinacridone I don't like, whether it's a gold, violet, red, lilac. But theirs is PV19 for their Quinacridone Violet. Isn't that just luscious? It's a very pretty color. All right, then we have their Viridian. This is a favorite of mine. It's a very bold, bright green, just single pigment. In fact, all the colors I picked as my favorite from Mission are single pigment except for one. They actually have quite a good range of single pigment paints. Look at that, and that's PG7. Of course, we will look at them when they dry too. All right, so now we're on to the Indanthrone Blue, which is another one of my faves. It's PB60. I can't remember if I said this or not, but I am swatching wet on dry because that is how I paint. And I firmly believe you should always swatch the way you paint. I literally go straight from tube with just a wet brush, and then that's the wet, and then just to dry paper. Swatching that way lets you know how it's going to look when you go to use it. This is PG36 for Bamboo Green. So it's always important to swatch the way you actually paint. And I am using a cold press as well. I typically only work on cold press paper, so that's another thing to keep in mind. Now we have our Rose Madder, PR176. I will actually be changing up how I swatch for my comparison videos. I am just going to swatch how I want to swatch. I started taking requests, and it just started to get a little too messy for me. All right, another Quinacridone, but like I said, I've got a thing for them. So this is Quinacridone Permanent Rose. This is PB19. Now their Quinacridone Violet is also PB19, but I'll show you the difference once they dry. You got to keep in mind, just because one, the name doesn't always matter, right? But also the pigment used isn't a sole determining factor. You know, PR122 is used in quite a lot of paints, but it doesn't necessarily mean every single PR122 paint out there is the same. So this is Autumn Orange, PO36. Such a luscious color. It's honestly one of my favorite oranges, and I'm not really an orangey type of person. I usually mix my own oranges and water them down till they're almost more peachy. Okay, Indigo. This is the one that isn't a single pigment, but still worth it. It is PB29, PB27, and PBK7. These are fresh from the tube. They're a little bit more concentrated, but also they're wet, so we'll let them dry. So that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna let these bad boys dry real quick, and then we'll come back and then I can discuss with you what it is that I love about these, or why they're my top 10 from Mission. Okay, so there we have my top 10 favorite Mission Gold paints. So let's talk about why I really like these. Well, for one, I do watercolor florals, so purples, pinks, reds, greens, blues are always going to be some of my top faves. However, Dioxazine Violet is a color I really like. I used to think Winsor & Newton's Dioxazine Violet was my favorite until I had discovered the one from Mission. And it's actually one of my top faves, Dioxazine Violet Wise. Burgundy Red. It's a really unique, fun red for me. I really like this one in the fall, so I tend to use this in my fall palette. But also it kind of sprinkles over into winter. It waters down really nicely, so it comes out into this very pretty pink as well. Viridian, I love. It's very bold and bright. It's PG7, but I just love the way their Viridian is. It's not, some Viridians can be just a little bit more bluish, or too bluish, I should say, whereas this one's just right to me. Which brings me to their Bamboo Green. I really like their Bamboo Green. I've always been a big fan of it. It's usually in my palette year-round because it works if you do it heavily concentrated. You get a really nice deep green, but it also mixes well, so you can make it more into an olivey green. But it's a really nice one to have. So the Quinacridone Violet. I really like their Quinacridone Violet, and here's the two PV19s just to show you, because they are both quinacridones. See how this one's a nice pinkish color? This is a very bright pink though, so it's got more like that, I don't want to say like opera rose level, but it is very bright, and even when you water it down, or as you can see here where it's a little lighter, it's still a pretty bright pink. However, if you water it down enough, it comes out to a very cute hue. However, I usually only stick to this one in the spring and the summer just because of how bright it is. This Quinacridone Violet, on the other hand, I actually would use this one year-round. It's in one of my palettes if I want to use it year-round because it works great. You can actually darken it up. It lightens up well with washing. So it's just one of those ones that it's like an all-purpose. Indian Throne Blue. The first time I had ever seen this color, the reason I really enjoyed it was because it literally reminded me of denim, just the way it looked. So I usually use this one in my palette year-round. It also washes out really well and becomes a very nice light and yet still rich enough blue. So it's been one of my favorites. Their Rose Madder also is another red I like. It's a, what am I trying to think? Brain not working. When you lighten this one up, because like I said, I wouldn't put all of these in a palette together because if I did, this would get too close to the burgundy red. So this is one I would kind of use if my burgundy red wasn't available, but also I do break this one out more in the summer because when I wash it out and lighten it up, it's a really pretty pink. Autumn orange is one of my favorite colors from Mission Gold. Like I said, I'm not an orange person. However, I have always been in love with this orange from them. Single pigment. It's always in my palette in the fall, without a doubt. I think I can only, maybe one other brand has an orange that I actually bother to put in my palette rather than just make it myself. So this is one I always use. I love autumn orange. It's gorgeous. Now their indigo, as you can see, it's kind of got like a blackish hue to it. But you know what? Let me water it down a little bit more over here. But it is quite a dark, whatchamacallit, a dark indigo. See there? It is, in fact, got the black, it's almost like a Payne's gray, to be honest with you. Got a little bit we're going to scoop up here. But really, it's like a Payne's gray. So it has PB29, PB27, and PBK7. So that's what makes it really dark. But what's interesting, you can go back and watch my indigo comparison video, by the way. It's just a super dark one. I like it, however, and in fact, I often use this instead of a Payne's gray. I like the way it looks, the way it performs, but even here you can see it's definitely more gray than anything else. So those are my top 10 favorite Mission Golds. Again, this is not a palette made of Mission Gold. I'm just showing you my 10 favorite colors. I do sell these in my Etsy store as well. So, you know, if you're ever looking to add to your collection or you want to try some of these colors out, you can. I have a ton of Mission Gold colors, though, in my Etsy store, not just these 10, if you want to get some fat dots. But thanks for hanging out with me for another quick little fun video. A new comparison is on its way. I just had to start it over because I realized I forgot 4 brands for quinacridone gold. So I was like, well, we're starting over. So you'll get that next week. But until next time, take care. Bye now.